Today, within the International Super Yacht Society's Meet the Industry series, I have the absolute pleasure to speak with and learn from Jeremey Davis. Jeremey is a meteorological forecaster that has been with Weather Routing Incorporated for 20 years plus and is now the operations manager. Jeremey graduated from Lyndon State College with a degree in meteorology and a minor in mathematics, lives near Saratoga Springs, New York, and has completed, if you're ready for this, over 70,000 forecast routes in his career. As a young child, not fascinated with fire engines, but fascinated with hurricanes, and now gets to do this as part of his career. So I've introduced Jeremey, and maybe Jeremey can speak better a little bit about Weather Routing Incorporated itself. Jeremey, great to be speaking with you. Can you introduce the company Weather Routing Incorporated, please?
Yep. Thanks, Brendan, and thanks to ISS for having me on for this. Really appreciate it. So Weather Routing Incorporated, our company has been in business since 1961, so 60 years in operation. We kind of pioneered the concept of weather routing back in the 60s, developed the techniques of forecasting for ships at sea, which previously was not really a subject of forecasting that was done as much up until then, in terms of at least for commercial forecasting. The company has grown over the years, and we have developed off of, besides the commercial forecasting, we do a lot of yacht forecasting for sailboats, sport fishers, marinas, events, races and regattas, pretty much anything that's on the water we forecast for. And we do have still have the two divisions of the company, the commercial side and then the private forecasting side, dealing with the yachts, for instance. We're located along the Hudson River, a couple hours north of New York City, in Glens Falls, New York. We have a 24/7 operation, 365, so we never close. Clients can always reach us immediately at any time, which is great. And we have 46 forecasters now here at Weather Routing, which is amazing. So we have a full worldwide coverage. People have different specialties in what they forecast for. But we got a large operation here to provide the best possible products and forecasts for our clients worldwide.
Look, that is quite amazing. I actually didn't realize it was 46. That's I know in your time, Jeremey, you mentioned how much it has grown. So that's great. We've learned your background, which is impressive in itself, the company, but let's dive a little bit deeper. Something that's very close to all of the yachting industry and mariners' hearts, the weather, and more importantly, how we harness it to our benefit. So I'll disclose to the listeners, I use weather routing. I use the forecast, I respect the assessments, I speak on the phone, but I don't know who is sending it to me. You've answered a couple of my questions. How many? There are 46. You're based on the upriver in the Hudson. How does one become a forecaster? Who's in the room? Who's on the other end of that phone?
Sure. So we have on the yacht forecasting team, we have quite a few forecasters on that. We have our two directors, Mark Neiswender and Dave Cannon. They're our directors of yacht operations. They both have very long tenures here at Weather Routing. And then it goes down to the operations manager, which is myself and Brian Whitley. And then we have additional forecasters as well that are senior forecasters. And that on the yachting side right now, we have Alex, we have Emily, we have Amanda, Sean just joined our team as well. And then we have also other people that will rotate in during overnights or to fill in when people are on vacations and those kinds of things. So we got a very good team of forecasters that are there. We're all tight knit, and we all work together in the forecast center to really put out those best products. So we're always talking to each other. We bounce different ideas off of each other. Oh, and Chris as well. Chris on our forecast team as well. Don't want to forget Chris. So we have we bounce ideas off each other so that everybody, if any of us are kind of, well, what's the best possible route here? What's the best possible option for this client? We will discuss that amongst each other. We try to help each other out when there's a surge of services in a certain area. Let's say if there's a hurricane, the east coast of the U.S. or a strong Mistral blowing in the Mediterranean, so that we can kind of spread out our resources to best use our shifts to the best advantage to get the services out in a timely fashion to our clients. We all have we rotate through different hours, so we definitely do shift work. Some of us will work earlier morning, some people work later at night, during the middle of the day, weekends, holidays, but everything's all spread out. So when someone calls our office, they may not speak to the same forecaster every time, but we keep track of everything that's going on, with those clients, so they don't have to, explain every time they call up what they're doing, for instance. Everybody's very well aware. And on those shifts, people cover different ocean basins too. So people will be assigned to the Atlantic or the Mediterranean or to the Pacific, or kind of covering anywhere that needs the most assistance, where we can be of the most help. And we'll review each client at least once or twice a day, depending on their situation of how sensitive the weather might be for them. We're always trying to make sure that everything is on the up and up with every client, and that everybody is in the best possible situation they can be in. So there's really drastically reduces the chance of clients seeing a surprise, seeing a gale or the system. That's our biggest, concern. We don't want any client to get into a surprise situation. So that's why we're really watching it all really carefully and all together to make sure that nothing gets missed.
Look, you've given me a lovely lead-in. Someone to think this is rehearsed. It's really not. That is a great lead-in. No surprises. Look, I'm very young, but I went to see when it was HF weather that came through in signal groups. Now it's online, it's animated, it's beautiful colors. There are graphs showing sea and swell, it's free to wear, it just looks so wonderful. What does the end user need to be aware of when reviewing weather information without a forecaster there, either written or on the phone with you?
Sure. So if for mariners using a weather source, be it from testing, using any of the free websites that display the data, or using some of the commercial products. Like we have our own seaweather.net website with the weather graphics on there as well. But you have to really look at, what is the data showing? Is it for the right period of time? That's sometimes simple enough, but you might even have the wrong date, right? You got to make sure that you're looking at the right time frame. You got to be looking further out into the future as well, and then realizing that the farther out you go, the more and more variability and changes there is going to be to those kinds of conditions. So you don't want to necessarily, hang your hat on a forecast that's going out 12, 13 days about those conditions. You want to be aware of the trends. You have to really be watching all of that pretty carefully, because the models sometimes will have drastic changes every 6 hours when they're run, and you can have completely different scenarios. So that's one thing that we'll look for, is that we'll kind of watch the trends and not just say, okay, this gale is going to be exactly this location 12 days from now, because that's pretty difficult to pinpoint. You also have to look at everything from satellite imagery, because sometimes people just look at, just winds and waves and not realize that, okay, there's a big squall line coming through. There's no radar to pick up on it in the middle of the ocean, or that there's a line of squalls, watching a tropical system to develop. So some of those things aren't on those forecast maps, because those tend to be the raw data and not necessarily been analyzed. Ocean currents too, we have to look at that, make sure that you're looking at the right place for that, and that you're not going, into a direct current, like going south into the Gulf Stream, for instance, or other currents around the world, and being able to use those to your advantage. So, and making sure that the models are up to date, because the models do change. Make sure that the data was fresh in those, that it produced in the last 3 to 6 hours. Sometimes they're not updated every 12 hours on some of those sites and everything like that, so it can be kind of old. And it may not incorporate always, the current conditions out there, which may be different than the models. So the models are, as atmospheric scientists, that we use to help, predict where we're going to see heavy weather and what kind of conditions are going to be out there. but they're not perfect. And that's where, our role comes in, is to help, look at local effects and realize where the models are deficient or where they're doing a good job, to be able to pick out changes where we would make adjustments to those kind of values.
Yeah, interesting. I think when you were just describing that, all I could think of, in a world that seems to be full of data, what we really need is information.
Yes, exactly.
So that's
yeah, because we're bombarded every day, as humans
you're
now.
living in it.
There's so much data out there. It's just, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, there's just so much out there, and cutting it through, like, okay, it's great. Well, what does it all boil down to? What does it mean for me to make a decision about, is it safe for our vessel to go out? Should I wait? Should I delay? Should I take a different course or a different speed? All that strategy involved.
I'm glad you just said strategy. I'm going to come back to that. I quite enjoy that, talking with the forecasters. That's me just indulging on a bit of a projection there. We did speak prior to this call, and I said, oh, look, I know Weather Routing Incorporated, WRI, I do crossings. You then spoke of some additional services that I wasn't aware of.
Sure.
Can you speak to the services beyond the core route support that I and many of the yachting diaspora are probably most used to? What are the other, why else would I be picking up the phone to WRI?
Sure. And, besides just our traditional customized forecasts that we have, which we talk about, like weather synopsis, conclusions, routes, and conditions, we can also include different forecast maps with those. Those can be included. That's an animated GIF that will show your vessels moving through the different weather features out there. We also do weather window planners, where we can help find a weather window for you. It's kind of a shorter, less expensive report. And that way, if you have like a range of dates, like you're leaving in 5 to 10 days, you just want to have an idea about when the first window is to go. It's a report that can help summarize that for you.
Like that one.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good way to kind of get a teaser of what to come and then get a more detailed forecast closer, which can also tell you too, sometimes there is no window in those 5 days, and it's going to be best to wait beyond that point. So it starts to give you a heads up for that. We do climatological studies too, and those are very helpful to our clients because let's say, there's new destinations that that clients want to check out, or they're thinking of going to more exotic locations where yachting isn't as common as other
monsoon cycles.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. To know that, to know, okay, so we want to go down to the Maldives, Seychelles, or, when can they do that? You got to time it when the monsoon is transitioning, for instance, like you said. Planning transocean crossings. If they want to try to, especially if one's out of season, like, is it feasible to go? A vessel had to relocate from Fort Lauderdale to Gibraltar in January. Is it even feasible? And we can put together those kinds of climate reports that will talk about the typical routing, typical weather conditions. Is it even feasible at all based on the vessel's constraints? Do they need to consider stopping for fuel on the way? We put those all together to help kind of plan, where to go. And like I said, yeah, especially some of the locations that, are not as common, there can be less information on that. So let's say the owner or the charter wants to go, to a specific island, and they want to know, is that even worth going, at a certain time of year? Is it going to rain the whole time and be terrible weather, or is it a great time to go, or do we have to watch out for the tropical situations? So yeah, we can put together those kinds of reports for that. We do newsletters to our clients, kind of detailing weather features and new products. We do some webinar outlooks as well each month, where we'll talk about different weather features that might be out there, like a tropical webinar, tropical outlooks, kind of what the weather's looking like for transocean crossings for a month. Talking about anything, kind of weather related, kind of interesting, and they're interactive and they can ask us questions. So we'll do that as well. We even do consulting information when someone just needs kind of a really quick idea. Can I go tomorrow? I don't need a full forecast, but I just need to know if I can go. We can do that too. So yeah, and our SeaWeather website and SeaWeather Onboard, those are our supplemental websites. So they can go on and if they subscribe to those and see different weather conditions, SeaWeather Onboard, and get data files emailed to you, so you don't have to have a constant internet connection. So yeah, those are just some of our our extra products that we have. Oh, and lots of them there. So we got tropical surveillance too.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
they're currently using our service, we do tropical surveillance emails, and it's our own summaries. So it's not just from the Hurricane Center. We're doing our own interpretation of them, and we're oftentimes well ahead of the Hurricane Center, because if we see a tropical low forming that has a good chance of becoming a tropical depression, yeah, we'll start putting in those waypoints and be able to put a course.
Yes, where the national authority has to wait for it to be designated, you can actually move in. Yes, I see that.
As a disturbance, tropical low. So and we put out the hedges, of how likely or unlikely it is to develop, but it starts to give clients an idea about, okay, we're watching and here's the potential strength. So we can warn people ahead of time, because a lot of times those disturbances don't get the press that they might need in national news, and they can slip through, and then someone can be caught by surprise. So we always try to be one step ahead of that with the tropics. Heavy weather alerts too for government watches and warnings, like through NOAA, and we do met alerts too for Mistrals and Levantes and those kinds of things. So we just have a whole suite of different products and things that we do here to help everybody out depending what their needs are. And it's great, yeah.
Not all of the ISS members are at sea. And when we spoke, you mentioned a Marina service. That was, I think, pretty interesting, given the damage that can occur in a port. What does that look like?
Yeah, so our Marina services that we have, we do through our Sea Weather for Marinas service, where Marinas can get those tropical summaries and be able to follow along with those during the hurricane season if they're in a hurricane zone. But they can also, if they get the Sea Weather for Marinas, be able to have a daily forecast that's available right when they go on the website. They can print it out, post it up on the front desk, those kinds of things, be able to see what those conditions are for, and to be able to pull up all the products on Sea Weather, so they can kind of be able to see them, and maybe one of their guests has a question about just something that's just offshore, what the winds and swells are expected to be. So, but yeah, that's a great service for Marinas.
Yeah, I see that.
Because they need to know too, if they got a hurricane coming their way, they have to know well ahead of time to, start making decisions, and they can get those, from us, and we give them that extra warning through all those the tropical lows that we create out ahead of time.
Brilliant. Now, there is a mistake, I think, people outside of the yachting community that thinks that yachts, they don't care about cost. And yes, it's scrutinized heavily, and we're always looking for value, and the ISS is trying to promote companies that add value. And Jeremy, this is going to be a bit of a free gift here, because we're talking about a professional service by professional forecasters. My entry through yachting, I had professional racing, and I carry that with me. And I still view any ocean crossing as racing, but I'm now racing the fuel curve. So as far as value, one of my greatest moments on a significant yacht was we actually, through the use of a forecaster, we were 36 hours ahead of, yes, sure, it was the Pacific, but we were still 36 hours steaming ahead, thanks to the WRI advice. Could you talk a little bit about that, about passage optimization?
Yes. So we're gonna when we work with our clients, we get to know their fuel range, what their motoring speeds are. Can they speed up? Can they slow down to help conserve all that fuel? Because if we have a significant diversion because of a gale, we want to make sure that they're not going to be too light on fuel by the time they get to Gibraltar. They're in heavy weather, and they're very light and bouncing around, and we don't want that either. But if they throttle back, only went 8 knots to let the system pass by, if they have time to work with, then that can be just as valuable as trying to speed up ahead of it. If you slow down and let it go by, saves the fuel and can avoid, a couple 100 miles diversion of all of that. So we're really strategizing, and every day we're checking for our crossings, for longer trips especially. Can we shorten the route a little bit? Can we great circle them? Is it best that they just pull in and top off at Bermuda, or the Azores, or Canaries, or Madeira, or other islands, of course, in the Pacific or wherever, to be able to help, to be able to conserve that fuel, not have a massive diversion, and try to get to that most efficient route. And we're checking that all the time, so that that route isn't working anymore. Let's drop them south, or let's shoot them north, or let's have them really slow down and let that system go by, instead of trying to speed up and try to get around it, which may not work if the system.
No, I know that feeling well. And it makes me feel so much more confident when I can, whether it's by email or by phone, talk to a weather professional who is my conscience ashore in some ways, my weather conscience ashore. Now, look, we've covered a lot of ground relatively quickly. We've learned of the products and services. We will put links in this podcast so that listeners can reach Weather Routing. Before we say goodbye, is there any closing thoughts you would like to give to the International Super Yacht Society membership group?
Yeah, so we've joined the group this year. We're proud to be new members, and we're really enjoying it so far. We are going to be for this year in 2021 at the International Boat Show. So we'll be sponsoring the Oasis there. We hope everybody can stop by and say hi, and we'll be going to the event there down there in Fort Lauderdale for the evening event. So we'll see everybody there for that. And we can offer anybody who hasn't used our services before, for new clients, we would offer a complimentary forecast package just to try us out.
Nice.
And they can just give us a call. We'll put it up there in those links, like you said, to our website and phone number. But it'll be good for a free forecast and a free month of sea weather to try us out. They mentioned that they're a member of ISS, so we'll be able to let them try us out for free and give us a shot, and then that'll show the value of our services. And again, we pretty much can help anybody anywhere across the world. So we're totally global. Any trip that you have, or vicinities or charters, can really help strategize with you, plan for it, and give you the best possible knowledge to make those best plans. We can't always guarantee perfect weather. We'll shoot for it, but sometimes the pattern doesn't dictate it. But knowledge is power, and if you know that a certain week is not going to work out, maybe the guest can be, or the owner can come in at a different time, and you can rearrange the schedule or leave later, go sooner, and we can help you out with all that. So yeah, it's a little bit about what we do.
Brilliant, Jeremy. Look, it's been a pleasure learning about your own career. I'll give a little bit away. Studying physics at university, I kind of wanted to be a forecaster at one stage and didn't quite get it. So I'll disclose that to everyone. Look, wonderful to learn about a company that I thought I knew, but didn't. There's a lot more going on there than I was aware of. You are going on holidays tomorrow. Best wishes for that. Thank you. Look forward to seeing more now that I know some of the other products. And for the ISS members, that offer is very kind. And to see you at Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jeremy, and looking forward to learning more from the website.
Thanks, Brendan.